Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel of crafting, crochet and knitting. My name is Nikki and welcome to my little yarniverse. So hello, welcome back if you are a returning viewer, welcome if you're new. You can find all the content for this channel in my playlist Nikki's Yarniverse from 2020, 2021 and more recently 2022. So if you are enjoying my videos, make sure that you check out some of that content as well. Today I have a finished project and a whip to show you, but we're going to show you those in the context of reducing my stash in 2022. And this is not stashless, so stashless would be completely getting rid of all of my yarn, but that's not my goal. I personally like having a stash, but I like my stash to stay on the shelf and not be in bags by my bed that I trip over when I get up in the morning. So we're gonna, in 2022, try and check that yarn, get it back into sort of, the shelving units that are meant to contain it. And we're going to do that with a few tips that I have been working on recently and are working for me, so I thought I would share them. So if you are looking to reduce your stash, then feel free to let me know how that's going in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're getting on. Or if you find these tips are not quite working for you and so you've tweaked them, I'd also love to hear about that too, because that means that as a community, if someone wants to go and reduce their stash or go stashless, then they have much more advice that they can try, different methods that they can use and find the one that fits for them. So yeah, if you found these tips helpful or if you've tweaked these tips, then do let me know in the comments. So what are these tips? Tip number 1, we are going to finish our whips. I know, don't turn the video off. I know it's hard, okay? I've been there, I get it. It is easier said than done. But during the last few months, I have found a few ways that have been working really well for me to get me to finish my whips. And I'm going to share them with you. So I'm a scientist, and the process behind this is to do with our hormones. There's a hormone called dopamine, and every time you achieve a goal, you get a little hit of that dopamine from your brain that kind of says, well done. You get a little pat on the back from your brain. Well done, keep up the good work, go and do it again, be motivated, you did great. This is your brain kind of deliberately encouraging you that to achieve your goals, to go out and achieve your goals. This is fine if our goals are short-lived. So if our project is going to take us a couple of days, great, in a couple of days time you're going to get a dopamine hit. But if our projects are not a couple of days for whatever reason, then it's going to get really tiring and really boring and really demotivating. So I've found a few ways that we can utilize that dopamine in our big projects or in our long projects even, and give us that motivation that we need to keep going. So there's a couple of examples of where this might be a problem. One is that if you are a beginner and you're struggling and you keep making mistakes and having to frog back, that's going to take a project and extend the amount of time that you spend on it and be demoralizing. If you are working on a detailed pattern, something that you have gone outside of your comfort zone and you've picked something that's going to be a challenge for you, again, if you're struggling with it, it's going to be a bit demotivating. Or simply if you have a really big project, a physically big project like a blanket that is just going to take the time that it takes to make it. Or you're designing, you could be designing and you might be struggling because you're having to frog back and retweak and take notes and do it again to check that your notes are correct. That's going to lengthen the process. So 2 practical things that we can do to get a dopamine hit. One is that when our mind wanders and we think about casting on a new project when we haven't finished our whip, do it. So within reason, most of the internet will tell you, don't do it, finish your whip, don't start something new. I'm saying that if the thing that you are going to start is definitely going to take you less time, then just do it, because you are going to feel refreshed because of the break, you're going to get the dopamine hit because of the small project and the achievement, and that's going to give you the motivation to return to your whip. So if you are working on a big project like a blanket and you really want to cast on another blanket, don't do that, because then you'll just end up with 2 blankets that you don't really want to do either of them, and you'll feel like the progress is really slow for both projects. That dopamine hit is going to be a really long way off. But if you're working on a blanket and you decide that you want to make, for example, a hat, that's only going to take you a couple of days, then do it. Take the dopamine hit and use it to jump back onto your blanket. And this has happened to me recently. I was working on my mum's granny square project, which is going to be a blanket, quite a big one because it's going to go on the sofa, and I was making good progress with it, but then I started to slow down and get that sort of, demoralizing, this is taking a long time. I had my Christmas yarn and I really wanted to make it, and it was a distraction because I just kept thinking about this yarn instead of this project. So I put this down, I did the hat. It was only going to take me a couple of days. In fact, it took me, I think, a day and a half around work. It's got this beautiful 1x1 rib for the brim, and then this here is the wrong side of a textured rib, and I think that when it's next to the 1x1 rib it looks really good. In fact, if I just flip this out, this is what the right side of the textured rib looks like, and when you put that up against the brim it's really hard to see any difference. So I definitely think that the correct thing to do, because it's a 1x1 rib, has been to use the wrong side of the textured rib to really give it that textured contrast. I'm really happy with how this came out. It was a short project, gave me a dopamine hit. It was extra special to me as well because my husband got me this yarn, so that sense of pride was something that I could share. I could be like, look, I did this, I made this with the yarn you got me. And that was just massive motivation for the next project. As well, because it was a family link and it was my husband, and my husband was happy for me, it made me also remember that this project is for my mum, and she's also going to be really happy when it's finished. And that memory and that sort of that memory in combination with that dopamine hit has given me the excitement to get back to it. So yeah, that's one way you can get a dopamine hit. Another way that you can get a dopamine hit is with reframing your project. Now this works for a big project like a blanket, but it also works for a project that you're struggling on. So it's very easy to think that when you've struggled that you've failed, and you get frustrated and you frog it back and you try again and you fail again and you get frustrated. That's the wrong way to look at it, okay? Because what you've done is you've tried it, you've got to a point where you realised it was wrong, which means that you have learnt what your stitch should look like. That is really important for when you continue your work. Recognising what should be coming off your needle or off your hook is really good. Like, it's gonna make you a better crafter. So if you can spot your mistakes, what you've actually done is you've learnt what your work is meant to look like. So okay, yeah, you've got to frog it back. Okay, that's gonna suck, but you've got to get out of this mindset that it's a mistake, because you can just frog it back and try again, and when you get it right, it's gonna feel even more impressive, and you're gonna have learned even more along the way than if you'd have just got it right in the first place. So if you're struggling with something, the way that you reframe it to get those dopamine hits is to, instead of thinking I made a mistake, think, okay, I've learned how to not do it. I've learned this way didn't work, so I'm going to try something new. Be excited for the new thing you're going to try. It's going to be hard, I know, but it's going to be more beneficial in the long run, because like I say, you will have learnt more. If it's just that you have a big project and that's getting you down, then we need to reframe what constitutes a goal. With the initial steps that I made with the granny square blanket, I kept telling myself, okay, every 8th square was a row, because originally this was going to be an 8x8 blanket. So every time I did 8, I got a little, like, well done, you've done another row. That's when it started to slow down, because when I started to get to the point where I had a lot of the squares and I was facing the fact I had to sew it, I was getting a bit demotivated. So I jumped onto another blanket, which I know I said I shouldn't do. And the reason you shouldn't do it is because this then sat for nearly a month not being done, because I did the blanket and then I didn't want to go back to it. So this had like a month of not having any progress done on it. So that's why I'm saying don't go from blanket to a blanket. However, in this case, I learned from the second blanket how not to make the mistakes with this one. So the second blanket was the Christmas lights blanket, and this was really good because it was separated up into 7 different colours. So I could tell myself, okay, well, today I'm going to do the orange ones. It's a Saturday, I've got all day, I'm going to do the orange ones. End of Saturday came, I finished the orange ones, little dopamine hit. okay, I've got to go to work tomorrow, so realistically I'm not going to get the yellow ones finished until, you know, Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday. But what I'll do is I'll work on it during lunch and I'll work on it after work, and we'll try and get the yellow ones done in a couple of days. Great, the yellow ones are done in a couple of days. That's the orange ones done. That's the yellow ones done. I'm going to work on the blue ones next. Like, just constantly having this idea of, I'm going to get the blue ones done. That's my goal. Not to get the blanket done, to get the blue ones done. It meant that I got a hit after every single step, and I actually worked on that blanket for 2 weeks straight. I didn't put that blanket down because I just reframed my goals. The only time I had a problem was when it came to sewing it together. That was difficult because I tried to sew together the whole blanket in one go, and it took ages. It took about as long to sew as it did to make the squares. So yeah, really not fun. But at least once I got it done, great, okay, right, pushed through it, got it done, dopamine hit, now we do the border, great, dopamine hit, done the border, now we're going to finish this blanket. Like, we're going to add the detail, we're going to get it done. So that blanket really was a testament to reframing, and it made me think of this one in a new light, because I realised sewing was the problem. Sewing was the thing that was going to demotivate me because it took so long to do, and there was no like easy end point to give you a dopamine hit. You either had it finished or not. But if you sew it together in panels, because of how big the project is, trying to sew the whole blanket, that was the problem. Trying to sew a couple of panels at a time and then sew the panels together meant that every time I finished a panel, I got a goal. I achieved a goal. First panel is done. Great. Let's move on to the next one. Second panel, done. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. Like, that's most of the blanket done. Just because I reframed it and I thought, right, we're going to do the panels. So that was a really long-winded tip 1. But I did say that tip 1 was to finish your whips, and I can't just not help you to do that. So hopefully you will find the idea of reframing and the fact that it's okay to do something short as a break in between big projects helpful for finishing your whips. Because ultimately, if you finish your whips, the yarn is no longer on your shelf, the yarn is in your project, and you can either wear it or have it around the house or just enjoy it the way that you wanted to do. So, moving swiftly on to tip number 2, and that is to do with our projects. We have all been there, we've all seen a beautiful pattern, thought, I want to make that, rushed off to buy the yarn either online or in the store, got it home, put it on the shelf, and 2 to 3 years later it's still on the shelf. Yeah, that's me. I have got so many projects on my shelf that I know what I want, so much yarn on my shelf that I know what I want to do with, I know what the project is that I have in mind, but I've never done it. So the yarn is just sat there in the way or bursting off the shelf, and I am no closer to having my reduced stash. So how do I fix that? That is where my second tip comes in handy, because I have been doing this over the last couple of months and I have found it really, really helpful. And I've done a few projects already that I'm just saving for a different video to show you. But you take the yarn off your shelf for 1 or 2 projects, depending on how big the project is. You want to be aiming to have maybe, you know, a pile of yarn. You take the yarn off the shelf and you put it somewhere where it is straight in your way. You're going to make that yarn annoying, because for as long as that yarn is on your shelf, it is out of sight and out of mind. It's only when you feel like you have enough free time that you're ever going to look on your shelf and pick it back up. Whereas if you put it somewhere where it's straight in your way, you are going to utilise smaller pockets of free time to get started on the project, find that you enjoy it, and keep going. So what I've done recently is I've taken the yarn for 3 smallish projects, and I've put it on my desk. I work from home at the moment, which means that my laptop is on my desk, my screens are on my desk, and my paperwork is on my desk, and now my yarn is on my desk, and it's very much in the way. But what it does mean is that during my lunch break on Monday, I can pick it up and cast it on. After work on Monday, I can continue it because I cast it on and it looks great. Come Tuesday, okay, great, I won't be able to pick that up until lunchtime, but I'll do something at lunch, and then I'll pick it up after work. So it's constantly there. Every time I get a free pocket of time, or I'm waiting for a test to run or something like that, I can pick it up and do a row. And you'd be really surprised that actually that does add up. That does make a project really quickly. Like I said, I've already made a couple of projects doing this technique. Not even utilising my time on a weekend. My weekend I've been doing something else. I've been working on this. So yeah, just in my working day, I'm able to find little pockets of time where I can take a break and do a row. And at the end of the week, I've got a project. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have put the yarn and your hooks and needles, whichever one you're using. Definitely helps to have your equipment there too. But put it on your desk, or put it on the dining room table, or put it on the sofa, so that when you sit down, you sit on it and realise, oh, okay, maybe I should cast that on and make it. You'll find that you'll make your way through all those projects really quickly, and if the projects are being made, once again, they are being worn, or they are being displayed, or they're being gifted, and they're not sat in yarn form on your shelf. Okay, and tip number 3 is to make a discernible effort to sort your yarn shopping habits. Again, easier said than done. We're kind of in this mess in the first place because we love yarn. We love the idea of what we can make with yarn. We have projects in mind and too little time to do it. We bought it. I'm not going to be that person who tells you what you should or shouldn't spend your money on, because that's not what this video is about. I'm just saying that I have found it really helpful to rethink what I buy rather than to stop buying. Let's face it, I'm not going to stop buying yarn. That's not going to happen. But if I buy, you know, lots of DK acrylic 4-packs of yarn from an Aldi special buy, then I've got to find a home for 16 balls of yarn. If I save my money up and I go to a yarn on tour shop, you know, a little yarn boutique, and I film there and I pick something up whilst I'm there, I am going to buy less yarn, but I'm going to have been more selective about the yarn that I have bought. And my wallet is also going to provide me with a limit on what I get. So, like, there's always space for me to get those 4 packs of DK acrylic for my big projects. Like, if I run out of white, then I'm going to go and get white. Like, that's always going to be something that I'm allowing myself to do because I like to have a little stash. But why am I buying, you know, 3 packs of red? I don't need 3 packs of red just because it's in Aldi right now. I can wait. There is time to wait. I can work with the current 3 balls of red that I have and not buy 12 more. So that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting until I'm getting down to like my last 2 balls of a certain colour, and then thinking, okay, right, I'll put it on a shopping list. I will remember that the next time I'm in the shop to look for this yarn, and then I'll stock up. And I know that Aldi's a bad example because they only have yarn out at certain times of year, but I think they've realised there is a market, and so it will come out again. It will be in the shop at some point. I can wait. And the other thing to do is to just realise that, okay, well, in the meantime, if I'm desperate, there is shops online that I can get, you know, some Stylecraft from, or I can, you know, look on Wool Warehouse, or look on Hobby, or any of these shops where I can get Demo Amours, however you pronounce that one, you know, where I can go and get some DK acrylic if I need to. Like, why do I need to go and buy it just because it's in the shop in front of me? Why don't I go to a shop, enjoy the feel of that particular yarn shop, see what they have? Do they have hand dyed or not? Have they got West Yorkshire spinners? What colours are West Yorkshire spinners that they have? You know, do they have some King Cole? Do they have some of this? Do they have some of that? Like, go and see what they have. See what fibres they have. Feel the yarn. What do you like the feel of? What weight of yarn do they have? Do you like something lacier? Do you like something chunkier? Do you want something that is softer? Do you want something that is more durable? And just use that as an opportunity to enjoy the creative process. I have been to a couple of these now, and I've just thought, okay, right, well, I can't afford to buy a jumper's worth of yarn from this shop, but I can buy a couple of balls of sock yarn using a brand that I haven't before and see what they're like, or I can buy some new cotton blends or see what this bamboo type of yarn everyone talks about actually feels like when you make it into a shawl or a pair of gloves. And you can just change the way that you buy yarn and keep the creativity, okay? Like, it's possible. So you might want to do that. You might really struggle with that. That would probably be the main one for you to, like, let me know if you have any other tips on how you've found your shopping experience for yarn. That's going to be one that's really personal, but I think it's worth trying, because obviously if you buy in bulk, you're going to have lots of stash. If you buy smaller quantities of more luxurious yarn to play with, to experiment with, then you still get that creativity and that wonder of working with yarn, but you don't have your yarn shelf bursting at the seams. It just makes sense to me, so that's a tip that I'm going to be using. So this video is getting a little bit long. I have shown you my hat and my current work in progress. I am quite excited to wrap up the recording of this video so I can go and start stitching these panels together. My parents are hopefully visiting during the week, so it would be really great to be able to show them the progress. And also I really want to get on and do it because I'd love to have it finished soon. So I'm going to wrap up the recording of this video, but before we go, let's just recap those tips. So tip number 1 is to finish your whips, but to do so in a way that is going to provide you with short-term goals to keep you motivated. Tip number 2 is to take some of the yarn that's on your shelf that you have decided to work into a certain project and to stick it in your line of sight so that it's in your way and you can work on it really easily in your free time. Make sure that you stick your hooks and your needles with that yarn so you are good to go from the off. And tip number 3 is actually be honest with yourself about whether you need to buy yarn in bulk. Figure out whether you would like to buy fewer balls of yarn that's more high-end, or whether you do want to still keep buying in bulk. Work out what yarn you need before you buy it. And my bonus tip, slightly on that note before we go, is to make sure that you buy yarn you're actually going to use. So whether or not you want to buy in bulk is not my problem, that's on you, but make sure that the yarn you do buy is yarn that you want to use and isn't just going to sit on your shelf, because you might have certain colours that you like wearing and your style is pretty stable, in which case great, go buy those colours, or you have colours that your family have enjoyed that they want to use, or colours in your house that you want to stick to. You don't want to just go and buy something bright yellow if you don't have anything yellow in your wardrobe or in your house, or your friends don't like it either, because when are you going to use that yarn? Like, really? So yeah, stick to buying yarn that you actually are going to wear or use or display or gift. So yes, that's my little bonus tip. Whether you buy in bulk or not, stick to yarn that you're going to use. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope that you find these tips helpful. And again, if you do find these tips helpful, let me know in the comments, or if you've tweaked them into a slightly different way that you find helpful, then again, put them in the comments, because that way we stand the best chance of helping the yarn community in general if they choose to reduce their stash. And if you are making anything, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you are up to. I can't wait to show you the other things that I have been casting off recently. I'm really excited by them, so yeah, stay tuned for that video, and yeah, I'll see you in the future. Have a good one, guys. Bye.